Good evening, Razorback fans. Welcome to the one, the only Hog Talk podcast, live from the Sterling Soap and Roaster Studios, part of the Believe in Buzz Radio networks on 106.7 in Central Arkansas. All live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark. I am Porter Hayes, and alongside me, as always, is Adam Hall. And we're also brought to you by Bet Online. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, NFL, and more. Bet Online continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino card games available to play right from your phone. Head over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use the promo code BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. Adam, I don't know about you, but it's actually really cool to be able to come on here and talk about some good news. Talk about
Absolutely.
some
It's been a little bit for us.
I almost changed the intro song to Hello Darling My Old Friend, and it's just now we get to talk about some good things, and we'll get into the breakdown of the game. But Arkansas defeats Purdue yesterday in front of a sold out crowd. I know John Neighbors, we got to give him a quick shout out, wanted to help Coach Musselman get a packed Bud Walton Arena. Musselman said, if you get a packed Bud Walton Arena, I will let you come to the Halloween party, because I guess there was something along the lines of when they were at SEC Media Days, he was wanting to know where his invite was. So Neighbors gets to go to the Halloween team party, and right here we got the final stats: 81-77 over Purdue. Leading scorers was Tremar Mark and Trevin Brazil with 15 points each. And then you had L. Ellis with 12, Khalif Battle with 12, and then Chandler Lawson, which there was a lot of praise about him yesterday, had 10. Adam, I don't know if you got to watch it. I didn't get to see it. I followed along on social media, but what was your takeaways from this game? A lot of people are saying it was just an exhibition, but the way these two teams were playing, it was far from it.
It had that atmosphere, that environment, the players weren't taken to it like, oh, this is just another exhibition game. You heard the coaches that, yes, they were talking up the charity, the tornado relief, but they were both using this as kind of a litmus test of where they were at. Purdue's coach was using this as, this environment is going to prepare them for Big Ten arenas coming in. So it was one of those things that the players, even out there on the court, they were not treating this like a ho-hum game. Seeing at the end, towards the end of the game, Devo diving on the floor around 3 or 4 Purdue guys, and him and Edie end up colliding. But like, you're seeing that in a charity exhibition game. That tells you the mindset of both teams. So I had questions before the game, before the season coming up, like who's going to be that guy that's going to want the ball in the clutch. It's going to want the ball when it matters. And I think it showed yesterday, like, you've got a handful of guys that are going to show up. You've got a handful of guys that want the ball in their hands when it matters.
I made the comment yesterday that, man, just the ball movement, defense and the ball movement, how they were coming out. And you talked about not making this an exhibition game, but how they came out with a tenacity, fire. They wanted to win this game. I think last year, and getting embarrassed per se by Texas last year in that exhibition game, but now they're getting to play in front of all the fans in Bud Walton Arena. This is one of the most. I don't know, and this could be a great question we can pose tomorrow. And I'll ask you now before we continue: do you think this year there's more anticipation this year out of this year's team than last year's team?
Yes. I think that before there's a lot of questions that surrounded both, but I think that this year, or the ending of last year, going into the season, only getting to the Sweet 16, kind of set us up for like, okay, we've got to get back to the Elite Eight. We've got to get to a Final Four. All these guys that are coming in, they're veterans, they're scorers. They were, led their teams in scoring, or were up there in the top 2 or 3. So I think there's a lot of anticipation leading into the season. And I've said it time and time again that all around talent, not talking accolades, I think that this team, top to bottom, is the most athletic team that Arkansas has put on the court.
Yes. And it's hard to say yes, but I think I agree with you. But, just with last year and the freshmen and Anthony Black and Walsh, everybody that was a part of the team, but Brazil coming back, Davis coming back, I think that added to what you had in the transfer portal coming into Arkansas. And knowing just having those key pieces be a part of this team.
Mhm.
But I love the fact that we have a lot of guys who want to take that last shot, but they play as a team. I mean, I'm just every highlight clip I seen yesterday, there was 2 to 3 passes. I mean, it was like they were having fun, like it was an exhibition game, but the way they were finding the open man to have that chemistry and I want to say trust, to have that trust when you get that guy in the open floor and he's going to hit a shot, that is going to be huge. Because if they're playing like that now in October, November, if they trust each other that much now and they're producing, and it's not just as much trust as it is execution. Yeah, they shot 35% from the 3-point line, but that's decent from the 3-point line. I know we'll get into the offensive and the defensive rebounding in a second, but that was the thing that really stood out to me was the trust they had in each other. That's going to win them some ball games that might come iffy. And I know they've played really well the last couple of years, but that's going to win them some games that maybe last year or the year before last they would have lost.
Yeah, and last year, like you're touching on with having the freshmen, you wondered how these guys were going to play together. It was a different setting for them coming in to college. Previously in high school they were top dog, but then getting into college, how are the roles going to be? How are they going to be? And then we're just going to have to get used to we're going to have new players under Coach Muss majority almost every season. So the difference, and I think we saw it yesterday with bringing in veterans in the transfer portal, is seeing the cohesiveness and the way that this team has already gelled, that we're not necessarily, and things could change. So this is just all going off of, the last 2 games, but it's not a question that I think will come up as we're going into SEC play like it has in years past. In years past, there's always been that those questions of whether it's, which I know we're always going to question what the rotation is going to be just because Muss likes to mix things up. But there's not going to be that question of can these guys play together or who's going to have the ball? Or, I mean, I feel like if one guy's hot, another guy's going to back off. And I feel like that's understood with them.
And I think a lot of it too, when you got a guy like Zach Edey, coming in 7-4, they were talking about, Jalen Williams being an addition to last year's team, and they could have won an Addy with it, or they would have won an Addy with him on that team. And they were talking about the toughness. Well, who's going to be the guy that's going to come in and be, that lockdown defender? And we've seen that, with Mitchell, they held him to 15-9. I mean, he didn't go off. I mean, Toshibwe, and the big guys last year, a couple years ago, the guy from Auburn, they were going off on the team.
Yeah, and Edey's points, the majority of his points came at the end of the game, because I think right up until the final probably 3 to 4 minutes, I mean, he had 6 to 8 points. He didn't even cross 10 points until that mark, because, I mean, they kept him stopped. They were stopping his entry passes when Arkansas was on defense, and they got him into foul trouble. So he sat a lot of the game. He was having to get pulled out for foul trouble. So that really helped out a lot. And I mean, when he was in the game, they kept the ball out of his hands.
Yeah, and he got 7 of his points off free throws. So I mean, he's only 4 of 8 shooting, 7-8 from the free throw line. I know Arkansas, when you look at their 3-point percentage and their free throw percentage from the free throw line, they were 13 for 17. So I mean, that's good. That's when you're playing on the road, and again, this is an environment where it was like a March field, so there's going to be those nerves, there's going to be that excitement, but I couldn't be more impressed with the team. I know that, offensive rebounding, I mean, you got a guy 7'4", if you're shooting threes, if you're shooting a lot of threes, those offensive rebounds are going to be hard to come by. I mean, just because when they come off the rim, they're going way off the rim. It's not going right there like on missed layup or a mid-range jumper. But just the scoring all around, I feel very comfortable. Like you said, if somebody's down, somebody else is going to pick them up. And that's going to bode well coming into, looking into this season where they got a 4-game stretch before they go to the Bad Boys Mower Battle for Atlantis, where they face Stanford, Memphis, or Michigan, and hopefully they get to the finals. But over Thanksgiving break, but you got Alcorn State coming to Bud Walton Arena on November 6th. So, Alcorn State, Gardner Webb, Old Dominion, and UNC Greensboro. So you're going to have 4 games where there's going to be some down when it comes to the competition. That's what I'm looking to. One, the rotations, but seeing how they play down to competition, if they put it on the foot on the pedal, if they take this like this is an SEC team, that's where I'll be really impressed with this team if they come into every single game like it's going to be a war, because those are the type of games where you need to, because if you play down in competition and then you get complacent in that, that's where some of these lower mid-range teams, that's where you finish 8-10 in the SEC. That's where some of these games where you don't win the SEC, you win because you're playing every team because you got a target on your back. There's a huge target on this team's back this year. They're expected either to win, second. I don't know if anybody put them third in the league when it come to ranking them in the media and the coaches poll, and I'm talking coach by coach. So you got a bigger target on your back, and that's what's really going to help this team out. If they just come into these 4 games, really prepare, use it as a test or as a bookwork up into the test when you go to the Bad Boy Mowers, because there's going to be some good teams waiting to take you down, because the better you get, that bigger that target's going to get.
Yeah, that yesterday's game was, I think, a perfect storm, if you will. Like it shows you what you need to improve on. It shows you where you're at. You can use these next 4 games as kind of maybe change up your rotations. Maybe if somebody's confidence is down, you're going to get them in there to try to get up their confidence. Whatever the case may be, use these next 4 games to prepare you for the battle for Atlantis. Because, I mean, yesterday they treated it looked like a Madness tournament game. The players, the intensity, the crowd, I mean, just all around, it did not seem like a exhibition game. Yeah. I mean, they were leaving it all on the court.
I've seen a lot of the videos and a lot of, just social media interaction of the pregame. We posted a video with the Euro step and just how electric it was. And, also this was for a good cause. And I do want to give Purdue, I mean, there was a couple of knuckleheads that we'll talk about on the Purdue side of it that were, salty after the loss. And we said it though, if Arkansas lost, it'd be like, okay, it was an exhibition. It don't count. Well, we've seen that from, I want to say a couple. I would say 90% of the Purdue interactions was positive. I give kudos to the coach. I give kudos to all the fans that were talking about, hey, this is a really good team. We want to see you in March. I mean, because it was, at the end of the day, lose or win, that was a battle. That was a war that you are getting to witness. And it was a breath of fresh air. It was one of them that 2 teams battled, and it was like everybody embraced it and just respected what they were seeing. There was no shade thrown at either team. Like, of course, other than the few knuckleheads that was posting that, but I was very pleased to see the fans' reaction on both sides of the game yesterday.
Yeah, it was completely, like we talked about, touching on if we had lost, how it would go. But I mean, we all remember last year when we had the exhibition game against Texas and we got blown out of the water. Luckily, that game wasn't streamed or televised, so most people didn't get to see it. So you just had really the the reactions, the negative reactions afterwards, which, I get, but at the same time, the game didn't matter. And look how our season turned out.
Yep.
So, it was one of those, they saw the errors, they saw what needed to be fixed, and that they did. So it was refreshing just to see how this early on, how good of a team this is, how cohesive they are, and the camaraderie that you can already tell that they have. Picking up each other off the floor, up off the bench whenever their timeout's called, hopping off the bench when somebody makes a play. I mean, these guys are in it for each other. It's crazy because they've only been together for a few months.
Well, that just shows a lot of the senior leadership. That shows you when, and this is nothing to last year's team, but it's a point. When you're bringing 4 and 5 freshmen into the bunch, and a couple of them's one and done, they're looking, they're wanting to play for Arkansas and they're wanting to win, but you see guys that you're giving second chances to. You're coming to Arkansas. They've already been at another school. They're coming here to better their game because they trust Muss. They know, okay, I can't remember if it was Battle. I think it was Battle who said, if Muss calls you, you go. If anybody wants to go to the transfer portal and Muss calls you, you'd be dumb not to sign with them.
Mm-hmm.
And because he's his track record of who he's already put in the NBA, and not only just put in the NBA, but they're playing in the NBA. They're getting minutes in the NBA. And that's only going to help. And seeing like Devo and Trevin Brazil, they come back, they're like, look, we're not playing around. And you see the work that Devo puts in. He set the standard. He's posting workouts at midnight. He's posting Sunday workouts at 6:30 in the morning. He might not score 2 points, but he's already setting that tone of, look, if we're going to win, this is how we need to do it. And I love that about him, the fact that he might not see a lot of time on the floor. He might not be a top scorer, but he is showing that he wants to be that senior leader. And I think that's another plus that's really going to help this team moving forward.
Yeah, and one thing that I saw a lot of yesterday, and I saw flashes of it the previous game, and I talked about it then, is Layden Blocker is going to be something special in my eyes, kind of referred to him as Devo 2.0, just for, he's got defensive quickness like you wouldn't believe unless you watched it. Seeing him play yesterday, more time, I think, than they did against UT Tyler, and seeing how he held his own against, the number 3 team in the nation. He wasn't backing down from anybody. He wasn't shy. I mean, he was going to the rim. He was defending like anybody that you put on him. He looked, even though he's only a freshman, he looked like a veteran out there in a group of veterans. You wouldn't have been able to look at him and been like, oh, he's just a freshman.
And you look at the other stats of, we're talking about a game that had that March feel to it. This game was tied 12 times and there was 11 lead changes. Mm-hmm. The really only thing that Purdue had on Arkansas was the second chance points. And that was, they had 17 second chance points, and Arkansas didn't have any. But Arkansas got them on the fast break, and the bench outscored them 27-17. So you're looking at the fact that you're going to give some of this away. Again, we look at, Eddie, being that guy, and I don't know who in the SEC I don't know who they're going to face in the SEC that is, hell, he's the player of the year, but you're not going to have a lot of those guys that you're facing. But the biggest thing I wanted to point out was that overtime period. You outscored them 12-8 in the overtime period. You are already got one. Yes, it was a exhibition game playing the top ranked team or top 3 team in the country. You get outscored in the second half, 43-38, to let them come back and tie you up to send it into overtime. And of course, a big shot that gave you that spark to go into overtime. And then you come away and pull away that 12 that gave you the 81-77 final. All this does, man, that's what we were talking about last year. All this does is just help you, prepare you. And we talk about battle tested. I know this is in October, but come February, March, we're going to remember this game because this is going to be a talked about game, especially if these two teams meet again. And like you said, I hope they do.
Oh yeah. It was crazy. I mean, the environment, kudos to Arkansas fans for, it was, I think, planned right on Muss's part for bringing this game in on a bye week. With everything that's been going on with football, I mean, it was what the fans and what Fayetteville and what the state needed. And I think also that there was already hype around this team. I mean, you sold out your season tickets in July. So, I mean, obviously there's hype around the team, but that just put an even bigger spark behind the team, behind the fans, to get ready for the season that officially starts. I think it was on November 6th.
Yeah, and that's when it really gets started. And of course, if you look at the schedule here, I know fans are not going to like this because you see, of course, the first 4 games SEC plus. So look, if you got DirecTV that has the SEC package, you can get that on the ESPN app. If not, you have to subscribe to the ESPN Plus to get the SEC Plus. So I would just suggest, until season, I mean, I would look even into some of it when it comes to, we'll give a rundown looking at it. All the games at the Bad Boy Mower is going to be on ESPN. Of course, Duke.
Every game, there's the handful of the non-cons are going to be streaming only. Once we get into obviously conference play, but I mean, you're able to watch every single Arkansas basketball game from here on out in one way or another. ESPNU for this first game of Battle for Atlantis. Then the next 2 games will depend on who they beat if they win. Duke's on ESPN, OU's on ESPN2. But then the last 2 non-conference games, Abilene Christian and UNC Wilmington, are on SEC Network. So from there on, every game is televised, not just streamed.
So your Furman game, SEC Plus, that's on December 4th. And then December 16th, you're playing Lipscomb in North Little Rock. So, yeah, like Adam said, after the Lipscomb game, you're going to have no problem watching this team. But, hey, if you want to get the subscription, the ESPN subscription for a month, and then when it gets the SEC time, cancel it, do away with it. This is the best time to get it. I know, especially going on into basketball and baseball, there's a lot of these games that are going in. And just to be honest, look, the times that we're in right now, it's going to streaming. Even if it's on ESPN, it's just, I work in an industry that, where it's going to streaming. And that's what I know I've talked to many customers today that were talking about, I want to get the ESPN because it's streaming and can't get a lot of the basketball and baseball games. And that's where we're headed. So the better time to get a jump on things where you can watch it. It's easy for those that don't have a smart TV. Go to Walmart and get you a $20 Roku stick, plug it into your HDMI port, set your ESPN up, and there you go. If you want to do all the streaming and do the YouTube TV and stuff, the best of both worlds right there. But we're going to take a quick break. After the break, we're going to move our attention to the football game and coming off the bye week. They got the Florida Gators in Gainesville coming up on Saturday, and we'll catch you after the break. Attention DIYers and home improvement enthusiasts. Are you searching for the right tools and the supplies to tackle your next project? Look no further than Mentor's Hardware Store. With locations in Ozark, Alma, and Clarksville, our vast selection of hardware and building materials is sure to have everything you need. Whether you're fixing a leaky faucet or building a new deck, plus our knowledgeable staff is always on hand to offer expert advice and guidance. And with our competitive prices and convenient online ordering, Mentor's Hardware Store is your one-stop shop for all your DIY needs. Visit us today and let's build something amazing together. Are you in need of legal representation? Look no further than the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson. As the oldest law firm in the River Valley, we have been serving our clients for over 100 years, with locations in Ozark, Fort Smith, and Spring. Our experienced team of attorneys provide expert guidance and advocacy in a wide range of legal areas, including personal injury, family law, criminal defense, and more. Trust in our history and experience to get the results you deserve. Contact the law office of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson today at
479-782-8813. That's 479-782-8813. Are you looking for a place to grab a cold drink and some delicious food? Look no further than Arkansas Brewing Company. Located at 201 South 1st Street in beautiful downtown Ozark, our establishment offers a wide selection of craft beers and tasty eats. But what sets us apart is our welcoming atmosphere and friendly staff. At Arkansas Brewing Company, you'll always feel like part of the family. So visit Destiny and Christopher Brockett and staff today and see for yourself what makes us the go-to spot for locals and visitors alike. Arkansas Brewing Company, come for the drinks and stay for the friends.
And want to welcome you back to the Hog Talk podcast and moving our attention to the Florida game. Florida is coming off a 43-20 loss to Georgia. The score, I mean, again, looks like it was more lopsided than was 36-7, I believe, going into the fourth quarter. So Arkansas going to Florida, it's always a tough place to play. This is going to be a big questionable game. I think I won't give a prediction until the last minute, which that's Adam, that's how I am every week when it comes to predictions. So you got a new spark in Guyton, and I know I call him kind of the OC, but he's just the play caller. But I mean, it's one of the things like he's kind of auditioning for a job. I mean, he is, and whether he gets it or not, I mean, it's on. And Coach Pittman even said, if he comes through and he does a really good job, his name's going to be in the hat for this consideration. So I want to ask you, knowing that there's a chance that this ain't just something that an interim and then it's automatic going into next year looking for somebody. How do you think that helps this team? Because he's going to be play calling and doing the game like he's wanting to be the offensive coordinator next year.
I think you're going to see this offense rally around him. The team loves him. And I think that, obviously the players, they don't want to lose. They don't want to put, a lot of the issues came from, the play calling versus directly with Enos. But these players, they love Coach Guyton. I do believe that, like you said, this is an audition, an interview. It's going to set him up for future things. So I look that it's going to be balls to the wall. It's going to be, I'm not going to say a complete night and day difference because I don't believe that. But I think that they're going to come out and show some things that we've previously seen. Because he was with Kendall Briles, for the last few years. So I think we're going to see more of the one read RPOs. It's not going to be the having to go through 3 to 4, guys it's going to be a lot quicker than we've seen thus far. But I think the guys that I think they're all in for Coach Guyton, and they want to see him succeed. So I think we're going to see some fight offensively that we haven't seen yet this season.
Yeah. And also, that's the thing. All it takes is that spark, something new to come in. All right. We like this guy. We trust him. And again, nothing helps Guyton more than production. And then I want to bring this up right here. This is exactly what I was going to say. The question is, will the kids get him? The team has been persecuted enough. It's the fact that that's what is the first part of it was like, will the kids get him? That is going to be the production part of it, because he can come out and say the kids, or the players can say, hey, I like him. But if they're still spinning in the mud, if they're still not making any progress, then it's going to start putting that attention on, all right, well, we tried this and we're still getting. That's when you're going to start looking at, all right, is something else a problem? That's where I talked about last week when we need to give Kennedy some slack on the blocking schemes. Now, if we bring in another guy, they said the scheme's going to be the same. But still, you got somebody else calling the plays. You got somebody else that is coming out there. And again, what if the offensive line didn't like the way things are going. I mean, I know that in this era of football, we're not used to kind of players dictating who we like and who we don't and how we're going to play. But that's just where we are. So again, we could see a whole different side of the offensive line. We could see a whole different way of if they run more plays under center, and what we need to do is it's going to be a little bit faster pace, but let's enjoy what we're about to see instead of going back to, well, see, this is why we need to get rid of Enos earlier or whatever. Because again, we didn't know this was all going to, nobody expected this. There was hardly anybody that thought we'd be 2-6 right now. Let's give them a chance. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, I mean, yeah, give them a chance. Now you're playing for, and I know it's far-fetched to some and it's hard to wrap your mind around, but, they're still playing for a bowl game. So that is still on the table. They're playing for, the rest of, I would say go into this Florida game and these next 4 games as just I'm not going to say clean slate because I want them to have this chip on their shoulder, but go into it like you just go balls to the wall, leave it all out there on the field. Prove to everybody that, y'all aren't the same team that started the season 2-6. Go out there and smack some people in the mouth. And I think too that maybe I'm not guaranteeing this. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think we could see, some of the newcomers, the freshmen that now they're in that 4-game stretch that, they can play in 4 games and keep their redshirt status. So maybe we see a younger guy get a chance that can get some spark, whether it's a wide receiver, running back, or whatever the case may be. So we could see a handful of different things these next 4 games.
Yeah. And going into this Florida game where, Florida coming off that loss to Georgia, that they got, smacked around a little bit. So yeah, they're coming into this blackout game. It's at home. It's in Gainesville. But like we said, Arkansas ain't got nothing. I mean, they got nothing but wins in front of them. I mean, that's the only way. I mean, they got to win out to get a bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, we come off a bye week. That's, again, what I was hoping to see in the Mississippi State game, I want to see in the Florida game. I want to see them come out with fire and tenacity and improve, like, okay, we're not just totally throwing the towel in because we still want to win out. And, of course, it's you got a tough road ahead with 2 of those games being Missouri and Florida because Missouri, sitting at 7-1 right now. I mean, they look like a really good team. And how you're already – it's a tough win to begin with. But wouldn't it be something if they're sitting there 7-1 or 7-2 because they still got to play Georgia, I think. But, just think the fact, what would that do for Arkansas? Just hypothetically, Missouri, if they beat Arkansas, they go to Atlanta. And Arkansas is going to become bowl eligible, and Arkansas beats Missouri. I mean, I think that would be some revenge because we can say it all we want. That's a rivalry, and because that's who we talk about. That's who I talked about yesterday, when the cross-country team won their – is the 28th SEC title.
28th, yeah.
28th, and Missouri's sitting there too with volleyball in 13 and 16. But, I think going into these next games, it's one game at a time. Mm-hmm. You don't look ahead. You're looking at Florida, and then looking at Auburn and then Florida International and then your last game. But also, this is a countdown. You've only got these games left. Mm-hmm. And you got to win all of them if you want those extra practices. You got to win all of them if you want to salvage this season and play a bowl game. Because I'm telling you, if you do turn this thing around, I'm just, again, hypothetically, you win all these games and you make a bowl game, I think you're going to win back some of those fans that have been very critical of the team and very critical of the coaching staff. And we're going to see how this thing rides out going into the next season.
Yeah, and I think what happens, offensively with Guyton these next 4 games, it's going to also be a deciding factor on players on the offense leaving. Mm-hmm. With the way now, granted, with the portal now, if they've transferred once, they're going to have to sit a year, so that is back in play. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of these guys were newcomers to Arkansas. They've been here for a year or two. And, with the struggle of this, you want to go out high so that these guys have some hope and don't feel like they just need to jump ship and go somewhere else.
Yeah. And that's, again, that's definitely, if you want to build your team, you got to win. That's why I was talking about at the beginning of the year, how important this season was to win. Important was it to get on the right track and really get away from that 6-6 season, go 8-9 wins. Now we're back in the same boat where you got to win out to get to 6 games and a bowl game. And, it's going to be tough to do it. And I'd love to say that I had the faith that they could do it. It's hard to look at a team that's 2-6 and 0-5 to all of a sudden they're going to win 3 conference games. I mean, it's so this is going to be a very important game, show me game to where this team is at. Have they responded to the new play caller and having an extra week to get people who've been banged up ready? Get some of these guys in the lineup that has been struggling and give them a mental break, like the offensive line. They've done nothing but, see offensive line be the whipping boy, when it comes to what's wrong with this team. Maybe they needed that reset. So there's a lot of hope going into this game from me, but I'm going to have to see them actually do it before I'm ready to be like, all right, this can be done. And if they pull off the win against Florida, that's really going to, bring some hope that they can finish this thing out strong and make it to a bowl game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really going into this trying to not just be completely pessimistic about it, but I'm not going to be overly optimistic about it either. I'm kind of trying to go in even keel with it. I have things that, like we've been talking about that I want to see. I want to see, obviously, better blocking. I want to see better play calling. So I just, there's those things like that I'd really, like to see over the next 4 games, especially this first game with Florida. Because like you said, take it a game at a time. Especially the players and the coaches need to, don't look ahead. So just come into this game like, it's you're 0-0 on the season. It's your first game. Just, do what you're supposed to have been doing this whole time.
And for me, it's baby steps. Like, hell, they ain't even got to win the game. But, fight, score more than, don't just rely on field goals. Keep it competitive. Make it a 20-25, 28-25 game or 35-30 game. Score some points. Show that, this isn't just this is where we are as a program. And we got rid of a guy that we're blaming him for the play calling and this and that. But we're moving on to the next guy and we're still seeing the same results. I want to see the fight. The defense has held up their own. There's been no shots or no qualms about the defensive side of the ball. I want them to keep on. It's kind of time that the offense rewards the defense. Like, look, they've been playing their rear end off all season long. It's time, guys. It's time for us to step up. Things were stagnant. We got somebody else coming in fresh, calling the plays. Let's win this out. Let's go into Florida and beat a team that it's hard to go win in Florida. Let's finally get that monkey off our back and beat Missouri again. Let's beat Auburn. Let's get revenge on the Bo Nix fumble game. Let's go in and lay the hammer down and beat FIU. Let's salvage this season, because if not, you might be looking for a new head coach. I don't know, but there's a possibility if you lose out. I don't know where the state of the program is going to be if you lose out. Hopefully you win the FIU game.
Yeah. I look at, let's going into this Florida game or during this Florida game, after this Florida game, let's look at, okay, so if we play better offensively, if we're blocking better, it's just overall better performance, you can look at that and be like, okay, so maybe Enos was the issue. Maybe the play calling was the issue. And then start addressing your other issues after that. But you're going to be even deeper, I feel like, if we come out with the same stagnant offense that we have, that we've had this season so far, because then you're going to start questioning, okay, well, what else is wrong? what on top of the play calling is wrong at this point, because obviously it's bigger than we thought.
And then again, it could be one things that's just plain and simple, like they've just, all right, it's too little, too late, and it's not the fact that it's on anybody other than they think that the task is too tall to climb. The task of we have to win out to get a bowl game, and they don't have the belief that they can do that. That's where they could be like, just sit on the rest of the season. I mean, that's the only thing I could see when you're looking at they just laid it and not be on the coaching. So we got to think about that too, and not just put all the blame on the coaching or who's next. Kind of what we talked about last week of just because things are going bad, we're just looking at people to get rid of and be mad at. It might be one of the things that the fact they're just, all right, man, it's not going to work out. We're not going to win out. We're not going to make a bowl game. So what is there to fight for? And hopefully them winning this Florida game turns all that around and shows them there is something to fight for. There is something to still play for. We can get to a bowl game, and beating Missouri to get to that bowl game, I think would be a huge boost to the fan base because it's Missouri, and to this team because KJ goes out with beating Missouri in his career.
Yeah, you almost want to like flip the script on how it's been for Missouri against us in the past. That they beat Arkansas to get to a bowl game. We've poked fun at it in the past, but it's our reality at this point in time. So, I just whatever they need to do to get some W's, I'm all for it. And I'm not even saying I just feel like with Enos's play calling, it was very predictable in a sense. And I know a lot of people said the same thing last season about Kendall Briles play calling at times, but I'm not saying that, you need to throw in all these trick plays or these gimmicks, these gadgets. But at the same time, I mean, use some of the weapons that you do have to your advantage in different ways. You don't have to come out and throw or do, all the, we're not asking for flea flickers and this and that. It's just throw some different things out there that we haven't seen, that other teams haven't seen from us this season.
Well, and if, things don't work out, maybe you can just do like what Michigan's doing and just get you a guy to start going to the stadiums and getting the people's signals.
Yeah.
Hey, we posed the question. If you knew Arkansas was cheating and stealing signals, but yet they were winning, would you turn them? I think it was an 80-20 split where they were like, hey, look the other way.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but that's the thing. And this is not a knock on the fans because I guarantee you every fan base would do it. And now it's coming out that South Carolina took some of that from Michigan, and that's how they beat Tennessee and Clemson, because they were given the signals from Michigan. But that shows that the pressure on the head coaches to win in college football. It also shows that in the fan base, they're willing to do almost anything to win. It goes back to the Bobby Petrino thing. There's probably 40% of the fan base that seriously would take him back. If you and they would, no matter what he did, they would, because of what he did in those 2 years where they went 20-2 or something like that. 20-2?
No, because I think it was like 10-3 and 11-2, so like 21-5.
21-5. Okay, they would do anything to get those 2 years back. I mean, that's just.
Well, I mean, that's why. I mean, anytime there's coaching discussion, I mean, his name still gets brought up more than anybody's, especially now that he's back in the SEC. So, it's a lot of that's just people saying it to be saying it. But no, you're probably right on the mark that about 40% of them would welcome him with open arms. But the coaches are going to try to get whatever edge they have. They need to be a little bit slicker about it than old Harbaugh and South Carolina's coach. But
you don't have his coach buy the tickets in his name. You don't. I mean, it's just like,
and the fact that his Venmo history or whatever was public, it's like, dude, make that private. I mean, you gotta button these things up. So
that's somebody who like they don't care. Like they just think they're on top of the world when it comes to that type of things. It's like,
Well, he had a whole manifesto too. The guy that did it, like on how he was, that to fix the state of Michigan's football program. I'm like, oh my gosh, this
well,
guy
and
is
then
just.
you heard of the reports of TCU. They found out about it and
Mhm.
they were throwing dummy signals, and that's how they beat Michigan. So it's karma. How, if everything's true, of course, you're going to hear so many different stories and
Mhm.
tapes and stuff like that. But it's funny that if that is indeed how it went down and TCU took down Michigan, because it reminds me of that story of Mike Leach when he
That's
was
yep.
the OU Texas, where the fake playbook, and
Mhm.
ended up not working out for him in the end. But there for a little bit, it started working. But all in all, man, I want things to get back on track. For the fans, for the players, for the program. This is the catalyst. This is the pillar of the Arkansas athletic program. And I don't want to see 30,000, 40,000 in the stands and they're saying 71. We know there wasn't 71,000 people in the Mississippi State game because we all deserve it. The fans deserve it. The players deserve it. I don't want this thing to go off the rails and we're starting over, because we all know how hard it is to rebuild in the SEC. And if you're having to rebuild in the SEC now, it's going to take a couple of years. And man, fans deserve better.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the best case scenario is winning 3 or 4 games, obviously winning 4 and getting bowl eligible, but we can't completely go through another rebuild. It takes far too long. You've got good guys coming in, recruit wise. So it's, do whatever you can to keep these guys. And, you still have high hopes for, 2026 with Kane Archer and Greenwood. So it's, you gotta do what you can to, I think, keep the continuity, rather than just completely changing everything over. I think that's going to hurt worse.
Yeah. Well, moving forward into the week, we're going to have a pretty stacked lineup tomorrow night. We're going to have Coach Z on to recap the Purdue game, give us his thoughts of the game and the basketball team itself. Tuesday, we will have Courtney Mims from Pig Trail Nation to talk about her Florida Gators in the upcoming game. Being a Florida Gator fan and having to cover for the Hogs, I'm sure that's going to be an interesting task for her. And then on Wednesday, we're going to revisit with the swim dive coach, Neil Harder. We had some technical difficulties with that, getting him on. So we're going to be back with you Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday with live shows coming all the time. We'll keep you posted. Don't be sure to like, rate, and review our podcast. Download it. Give us a rating. Go over to our YouTube channel. Tell all your people to start listening and subscribing. But for this evening, for Adam Hall, I'm Porter Hayes. We'll catch you tomorrow evening.